Good afternoon from the Gothenburg Water Utilization Center. I'm Brian Yoder, a trainee here at the center, and I have Brett Lynn with me, also a trainee here. So what are we doing today, Brett?
Well, Brian, we're out doing a little bit of soil sampling. I think the last time we spoke to the Facebook world, it was about 15 degrees outside and there was snow on the ground. So as you can see, a lot has changed in the past few weeks. It's still a little too wet for us to be spraying. Temperature's nowhere near 50 degrees yet, so we aren't quite there for plugging corn in the ground. But we're laying out a good foundation for our fertility program for the upcoming growing season. So today I just want to take the time to touch on some best management practices when it comes to soil sampling. So the first thing you want to do is think about your overarching program. So it's important to consult the agronomist you work with or the lab you're going to be working with on what are some of the things you should be testing for, whether that be pH problems, what are common nutrient deficiencies in your area. They will be able to provide that guidance for you so that you're really maximizing your nutrient inputs. On top of that, they're also going to be able to provide some guidance on how you should be sampling. So they're going to provide some guidance on timing. For us, we sample during the spring, but you want to be consistent in your timing because the time of year is certainly going to influence nutrient availability in the profile. The other thing, they may ask you some questions about your tillage program. The tillage can strongly influence what the sampling depth is going to be because that may influence nutrient stratification in the soil profile. So for us here at the Learning Center, we are sampling at two different depth intervals, a 0 to 8 inch sample and an 8 to 24 inch sample. So when we talk about soil nutrients, there are kind of two general pools we refer to, mobile and immobile. So for the immobile nutrients such as phosphorus and potassium, we're really determining the nutrient availability to our crop in that 0 to 8 inch sample. And for the mobile nutrients such as nitrogen, we're looking at 0 to 24 to calculate the total amount of residual nitrogen so we can apply an appropriate amount in season and really maximize our dollars. So as you can see, there's some key equipment that we need to have with us to have a good soil sampling event. So the first thing we need is a good soil probe. You want to make sure that soil probe and all of your sampling equipment is clean as you move from field to field. We don't want to move any unwanted guests such as nematodes with us from field to field. And in our case, we have two clean buckets, one for the 0 to 8 inch samples and one for the 8 to 24 inch samples. We also have a can of light penetrating oil with us. In some soils, it may be difficult to get the probe in the ground. By applying a light layer, that'll help ease the probe in the ground and it won't influence our soil test values. Additionally, going back to the buckets real quick, we want to make sure that we're using plastic and not galvanized buckets, particularly if we're sampling to test for zinc levels. The zinc plating on the galvanized bucket can influence the test level. So once we're out in the field, we want to make sure that we're taking good samples, that our probe is perpendicular to the ground and not at a 45-degree angle or anything like that. And we want to make sure that we're getting an appropriate amount of cores. For us, we're doing whole field sampling, so we're taking anywhere between 15 to 20 cores per field. Once we have all those cores in the bucket, we're going to composite it or mix it together thoroughly, because we're only going to take a subsample of that to send to the lab. So we want to make sure that that subsample is representative of our field. So once the sample is composited, we're going to place it in a soil sample bag, which the lab you're working with will provide free of charge. And from there, once the sample's in the bag, we either want to get it to the lab right away, or if we're out in the field sampling all day, place in a cooler. And if we're out sampling either late or it's a Friday, we want to get home and place those samples in the fridge. This will prevent any microbial processes from converting nutrients over. That way, test levels are static, they aren't changing. So likewise, when we deliver those samples to the lab, we want to make sure they aren't sitting out overnight or they aren't sitting out over the weekend. Brian, you have anything to add on to that?
No, Brett, I think you did a great job there, and I hope everybody has a great and safe start to their spring.